Hello and welcome to yet another video focus session. Today is a bit different because it's a more high overview. We won't go into that many demos today, and some of these features we will cover today have already been covered in more details in feature focus on their own. So there I will again only give a high overview and then refer to that session because there was a reason why they had their own session, because some of them can be very, very big, like for example SQL report or line loop. But today is that when people use universal functions, they often use the three most used. Most people don't know they use the fourth one, but the most used is macro, SQL report, and message. And then many people, when they make tabs, they actually use the content creator. So these are the most used ones, but there's a few in here that are very rarely used. Some of them with good reason. They came before other features in B1 UP, so they're kind of legacy. While others might need some specific needs, some specific skills in order for you to use them. So again, today let's go through what we have here. It will be a fairly quickly session today, but if there's any questions for any of them, I can go in and make specific samples of what they can be used for. So you can see we have 11 different types of universal functions, and at the end, if someone have some ideas for other universal functions in the future, we can also take a little about that in the Q&A session. But let's begin with the first of the different functions, and that's type message. So when you do a universal function of configuration type message, you just get a big field here. It contains of three options. You can see there's the message, there's the type, and there's the block events. So messages is mostly for validations, like when you do a custom validation of a field and you need to tell the user, hey, what kind of message would you like to give them? It could be, you are not allowed to do this, you can only do this, and such things. So you can just write your message. Many people don't know that you can actually also use the dynamic syntax in the field, and you can also use the SQL : syntax in the field. I have a little demo on this, very simple, where on Business Partner Master Data I have a button here called test, and when I press it, it just says hello. So you can see it in here. And very much simple. So again, first part is I can control how that field should show its data. So I can go in and use the dynamic syntax. So for example, if I go up here and take the dynamic syntax of the customer name, something is shining through here. There we go. So I made it hello 7, and I will now say instead hello customer. And down here you can also see how that customer should be, or the message itself should be shown as a message box or as a status bar, for example. If I do it as a status bar, it will show it down here instead in green. If I do a warning, it will show it as a blue one, and if I do it as an error, it will show it as a red one. I can also do it as a question. So if I do that, it will actually come up and say hello customer, yes or no. And the yes and no part of it is because we also have the thing called block event. So, for example, imagine you have yourself in a situation where you set up a message when you do add of a sales order, and that sales order is not allowed to go through. Then you can say, hey, you are not allowed to do this because of some custom validation you made. But if you didn't block the event, it would then save the sales order anyway. So blocking the event is stopping SAP from doing its thing. And that's of course a good thing to do, so you can block the event. If you use the prompt system, you will actually get a yes/no, and if you say yes, it will not block. If you say no, it will block. So you can say, this, you should really do this on the sales order, but do you want to continue anyway? And that's the reason why we have the prompt part of it. Okay, so that's message. SQL colon didn't show, but I could write SQL colon select star from select something, and the first value of the first row getting from that SQL would give me back the value of the message. Okay, moving on. We have something called must have specific value. So must have specific value is a tool it's a kind of legacy feature at the moment, because in the past we only had mandatory fields, but we didn't have validation system. So must have specific value was a version of validation system or mandatory fields that was a bit more advanced. So you could go in and say what kind of values was actually valid. In mandatory fields, you could only say it should have a value or it should not have a value. So, for example, for credit limit, I could go in and say it should have a value, but I couldn't say that value couldn't be in infinity or whatever value I had. So must have specific value is a version of that, just a little more detail, so I can actually go in and give the different values I am allowed to. For example, in sales employee, I'm here giving 2, 4, or 6, while in the credit limit, I actually say the value needs to be between 0 and 1,000. So that gave a bit more features, but to be honest, validation system is the way to go in the modern days we have now, because validation can give you so much more. It can give the credit limit for this customer group should be this, for this customer group it should be this. You have more flexibility in the credit in validation system over this. So while it gave a little more than mandatory fields, it didn't give enough, and validation system was the true free form of what you could do. So we don't see must have specific value be used that much in the system for good reason. We have validation system as mentioned, so I won't go into more details on it today. Next up is SQL report, and SQL report is, it competes with macro in being the most used universal function. So SQL report is a multi-purpose tool that came about from the formatted searches. So formatted searches could be used as a kind of selection tool back to fields. And you also had the query generator in SAP, where you could make your own reports and put them into, let's have it up here, into this list of different reports. So that was an option to do that. But in general, it didn't really, they weren't that good, because there was that when you ran some of these reports, let me see if I can find one here. There was always the problem of you could see the SQL. It didn't look professional in any way. So SQL report came about and took over that job, and it also took over the selection tool. So there's a full feature focus session. If you go to our YouTube channel and just search for feature focus SQL report, you will get it because we can easily spend 45 minutes on the SQL report alone. But just know that you can use it for many different features. You can make your own window with the report. Brand new thing that came out last week was that you can actually put them on as tabs now using item placement tool. There's a video on that in YouTube as well. It can also be put on the cockpit if you use that. Kind of a legacy feature because most people are moving away from the cockpit at the moment because SAP have really more or less abandoned it for the new Fiori cockpit on HANA. So we are not really using it that much anymore, but it is there if you need to have a special report on screen all the time and not needing to move it about or be behind other screens. And again, it could be used as a selection tool, so you can use it to make custom choose from lists in the system. But again, I have this link here, but again, if we go to YouTube, we just go to youtube.com boyum.it, and in here under playlists, you will be able to see the feature focus sessions. Let me find them. They are here. And you can see all the different feature focus sessions we have in the past, and one of them was SQL report. So here's 56 minutes of how exactly that feature works inside the system. Okay, let's move on. So next up is content creator. Content creator, most people know by having the right clicks and creating new tabs. So they go to any screen in Business One that have a tab collection. Let me close these and open. Right click and say I want to have a new tab. It should be called My Tab. And what fields of the user-defined fields should be on it. And it creates a tab. So it's here. What many people don't know is that tab, if you go to edit, is actually a universal function. Together with a validation system that opens up that universal function when you open the form. So the universal function is the way to go in this and see different add different fields onto the screen. It's a little like the item placement tool, but it can do a bit more in terms of it can make a few more things like buttons and tabs. So it can do a little more than item placement tool. You can see most of the fields are actually the same, what field we should bind to in database, what different fields there are. While item placement tool, if we go to that, I don't have it activated in this demo system right now, but it have the same fields, but it cannot make tabs, and that's the main reason why we have content creator. So as I mentioned, it's more advanced, but again, item placement tool have the new dynamic placement where it can place below, place above, and such things. And the reason why we haven't put that onto content creator at the moment is there's a long-term plan of slowly migrating, getting away from content creator and have that item placement tool can do all of it, including adding the tabs, the new tabs, adding new buttons, and so on. So we're not investing that much in content creator right now. It still works and we will still support it going forward. But when you do your screen modifications, do as much of them in item placement tool, because that's where the innovation will happen. At some point, content creator will not be the right click new tab. It will actually be item placement tool that will take over and do that instead for you. But again, if you look at item placement tool e-learning, you will understand what all of these fields are, but it's more or less that, okay, I want to have a label. It needs to be in this left position, pixel-wise, top position, height and width, what tab it should be on, what field it should be bound to in the database, and so on. So if you need right here now a new tab, a button, a golden arrow next to something, a picture box, this is the way to go. Make a validation system on load and load up some additional data. Or from item placement tool, you can load additional the universal functions here as well. Okay, moving on. Next one is external launcher. External launcher is a tool to get out of Business One. So you can go in and choose what kind of program you want to run. For example, I'm running WinWord here, which is Microsoft Word, but it could be your browser, it could be some kind of third-party program, kind of like SAP have the launcher up here, where you can go in and choose what kind of application you want to run. The difference for in our system is, if we go to the external launcher here, is that you can go in and give it arguments. You can also do that with SAP, but their arguments cannot be use the dynamic syntax. So in this sample I have here, I'm actually going in and telling Word to go out to a C code on contracts and find a file called contract underscore and then the name of the business partner. So if I have had a value like that, I could actually press that button and launch that Word document. So in that regards, you can go in and launch different things. In order for it to work, the program you run needs to support what is called command line arguments. So the way to figure that out is if it's a third party, you need to go to that third party and say, do your application support command line arguments? And if then they will tell you. If it's a common program, like for example Word, you could go into Google and say Word command line arguments. And then you will get different command switches in here. And it can go in and tell you, okay, I can start with an A, I can send in some part of the field I want. So that's normally how people used to tell what command line arguments are. And it's the command line arguments that actually sets the limits of what we can do, because we get a lot of questions like, when I launch the browser with external launcher, can I then put something into this specific field on the screen, or can this do this and then start the printing, for example? We don't really control that. We are just running an executable and sending it some arguments. So essentially we are just doing exactly the same as if you go to Windows Run and see this Run screen. So essentially what we're doing here is to type in WinWord and a space and then the argument we put in. So if it doesn't work in Run, it will not work in Universal Function External Launcher. But of course we can have the dynamic syntax. That's the difference from going to Run in the system, and you can hook it up to a button or part of a validation in the system. So what we use it for normally is open up contracts. For example, the contracts you have with Boyum, we have a field name in the system. We have put them in a special folder, and we have a contract button on inside our own Business One. When we press it, it will open up so we can see your contract instead of fiddling around in File Explorer. We just have that button to open up the contract and show it. And if we get a message saying the file is not there, we know we haven't put in the contract in the right position in the system. We also use it for terminal servers. For example, if you have the IP address of your customer, you can make a button that says go to customer's IP, and then you, just like Word is able to be run, then a remote desktop connection can also be set up. So you send in the IP address as a command line argument, and it will launch it automatically instead of you needing to put it in the system. So, but again, it's really SAP. It's not really SAP or B1UP that sets the limit. It is the program you actually want to run that sets the limit. Okay, moving on. And next one we have in here is macro. So macro is probably the most used because there's so many times people use macros in the system. And macros can be big and small. Again, just as with the SQL report, it have an entire feature focus session on its own. Over here I've listed all the different macro commands. So macros is a scripting language. It is when you do something, open this screen, press this button for me, like you see in most other macro languages. It can do a lot of things. It can store values, as you see in here. It can do conditional if and else conditions and such things in the system. So you have a lot of options with macro. And if you are interested in what you can do and how much you can do, all the different commands are described in F1 help, of course. And it's very beneficial to see this feature focus session on what you can do as well. So for now, we won't go into more details unless there's specific questions at the end. Moving on, we have Crystal reports. SAP have Crystal reports in the system now, and they can run them off menu items. They have integration into the system of adding documents and such things. But what they cannot do is they cannot have a button that runs a Crystal report. They cannot pre-fill out the parameters in the system, and so on. So what you can do is you simply just give your Crystal report, and it will highlight to you what kind of parameters you have in that Crystal report. And then you can use the dynamic syntax, SQL : as you normally do, so on. And then it will launch the Crystal report and show it to you in its field form. You have the options of different actions. You can show the report, so that's a viewer inside the system. It can be an internal viewer, so it's inside Business One, or it's an external viewer that you can move over to a secondary screen. You also choose the source. Most people have all the source data from the same database, and they make one Crystal report that should go to multiple. So it can say this database, or it can go in and say as it is in the report. You can also set it up to save the document, and if you do that, you of course need to tell where do we want to save it. So that could be //server, some server part you need to put it in. And if you do that, you can choose what file type it should be. PDF is by far the most used, but there's some Word version, CSV files, and so on. All controlled by Crystal itself. And you can, after that, choose to say, I want to open that file after it's actually been generated or just generated in the background. You can also go in and choose if you want to print that Crystal. And if you do so, you of course need to provide a printer. If you don't provide a printer, it will just take your default printer. And you need to provide how many copies you want to have it out in the system. And actually a thing that many people don't know is this field can actually use SQL : or dynamic syntax. So you can actually by dynamic syntax or SQL colon, decide how many copies you want on the fly. So it could be if this customer group have 2 copies, else have only 1 copy, for example. Finally, it can block events. So that's, for example, if you want to replace SAP's buttons at the top when print previewing, for example, you don't want to have both your own crystal pop up and SAP's, so you need to block it just as we did with the messages. So that's Crystal. Again, SAP have come along, but in the past we supported Crystal before SAP did it themselves, and we can do more things compared to them still. Next up is something called Dynamic Code or .NET SDK. This is really for the nerds because what you can do here is you can write C# or VB.NET, the programming language, the most normal programming language of add-ons. And in here you have access to the SDK. So if there's something that we can do with macros, with different fields, you can actually write a tiny snippet of C# .NET code in the SDK and get the system to do more than what we can do out of the box. You of course need to know C# or VB.NET. You can choose down here what language you want to write in here. But if you do, you are not really limited to anything. You get access to the company object, the application object, and the form object. So in my case here, I'm actually going in on a sales order and finding the matrix on the screen, and on the item code screen, I'm actually making the text in bold. Not something we can do in the system as is, because we don't have a macro that's called bold column bold this column. So it can do much things. It can also go behind the scenes and create things like activities and such things. I could even, if I wanted to, and I don't want to of course, but I could go in here and write that I needed to format the hard drive. You have the complete power of C#. Don't do it. And also, that's one of the reasons why we have this warning up above. Only recommend for developers. And what you write in here, you cannot get support on. We are not supporting C#. That's Microsoft's job. We are not supporting SDK by itself. That's SAP's job. But if you are skilled enough to go in here and do things, you can go in and really do some serious stuff in here behind the scenes with this system. Okay, so that's dynamic code. Next up is line loop. Line loop is by far the most advanced. Okay, you can say the .NET part is advanced as well, and macro, but by concept, line loop is the most advanced. It's about going through all lines on the screen and either collecting some data, checking some data, or manipulating some data. It can open up screens and copy all lines from one screen to the other. It can collect and check if any lines does not have a unit price, like this is actually doing. And I won't really go into that to more details than that on this session, because again there's a full feature focus session, one of the first we did in the series, that goes to every single thing about this, how SQL condition versus no condition, what the final result is, and so on. So I really urge you to do that. But essentially, if you have something where you need to go to not just a header field or a specific line, you need to go line loop and check all lines in the system, and that's its primary focus. Okay. Next up we come to the two file universal functions. The first one is called file exporter, or UFFI. And this is a tool that can make files. Again, we have also a feature focus session on this in general. But if you have small files that you need to send to third parties, or you need to have some small files, for example, with how much is on stock for a website, you can go in and make small XML files, CSV files, fixed length files, by providing how the file should look without its data, and then using these get keywords, you can go in and search and replace for those keywords in order to actually get the right data into the system. So you need to know SQL to do it. You write the SQL in order to get all the different values. You write the template of the file, and then you combine them using these keywords. So you can actually end up doing small EDI files. I won't say that you can do any EDI file. I'll talk more about that in the feature focus session. About big EDIs requires some real add-ons to do that. There's actually no limitation, but there is some practical limitations on having it like this. Sometimes it's better to have a full solution, but we're not really setting the limits on what you can put in here, because you completely define the SQL, you completely define the body. But again, if you're interested in getting files out of Business One, they can also be run on a schedule at night. But if you are looking into that, take a look at the feature focus session exactly on file exporter as well. Final one we have in here is the other way around. File exporter was take data in SAP and make it into files. File importer is take a file and make it into SAP data. And in order to do that, you again need to know C# and the SDK. So we have built in a system that can have a work folder, and you put in your files that you need to import. It could be data that needs to be turned into business partners, AI invoices, sales quotation, whatever kind of data you want. And you get a streamlined system that says, here's the file. What do you want to do with it? You pass the file, you turn it into .NET objects, and you use the SDK in order to actually get those turned into sales orders, business partners, the different things you need in the system. And then we take care of if something went bad, it goes into an error folder or success folder. We make sure that everything can be written. So we're just providing the framework around doing the file work. We're not doing the file work for you. That's what you need to do inside this configuration, because that can be with a UDF, it can be with any kind of code you need to put in there. So we cannot define that for you, but we can at least provide the framework so you don't need to create a schedule system or check if the files can actually be written to the right folders and such things. That's what we are taking care of. But without C# and SDK knowledge, you won't really get that far with file import. It is a super user tool or developer tool in that regards. File exporter you can certainly do with just knowing SQL and a little about how to make files. But this is a developer tool in the system. So these are in total the 11 different types of the fields. So now we turn on to the Q&A session. Oops, let me go in here. If there's any specific request to show some of the different universal functions, I can show them in the live system. Also, if anyone have ideas to what other universal functions should be there, feel free to go along and have that as well. I can see there's a question at the end of the session. Could you please write it in chat what the question is? But else it's open to everyone. What kind of if there's any one of these you want to see in specifics, please let me know in the chat or in the question in the Q&A session. While people are writing, next feature focus session and the last before we go on summer holiday is on the 28th of June. 28th of June is a Q&A session. There's actually no specific topic. I will be on the session, and you are actually the ones figuring out the person writing in chat. Could you write your question in the chat, and I will try to answer it. You are actually in charge of what should be asked that day. It can be pretty much about anything from Boyum, features on how to do it, and such things, you can get us comments. This should be better. This should be in different ways. So it really depends on how long it becomes. Is up to you. If nobody wants to ask any questions, it will be a very short session. But else it can be about all our other products as well in this system. It seems like the people who want to ask would like to be unmuted, so I should have unmuted it now. So what is your question?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you. What is your question?
Can I create a sub tab in a particular tab using Content Creator?
Okay, I think the question is, for example, on accounting, there's two tabs here, and you want to have a new tab in there. The answer is no. The SDK doesn't really support it. You can only add new tabs onto what the existing tab system is here. So, for example, I wouldn't be able to put on tabs on this screen either, because it don't have any tabs. So in order to add tabs, you need to have at least two tabs, like for example on, let me find it here. For example, the goods received have two tabs, and you could put on new tabs on that, while, for example, recurring transactions don't have any tabs, so you could not add new tabs in the system. That would be work for SDK.
Okay. The second question is, there is a category and remark in each and every function, right?
Yeah.
What is how I can use it?
Yeah, that's a bit up to you how you want to use it, but let me show what it can be.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah. I'm going there. So, for example, if we go to this universal function, I need to just create.
Okay, can you please go to report so that I have one more question so that we can move forward? Yeah, this category.
Yeah. So you put in your categories on different things you have in the system. So let's go into, for example, this validation system. Also have a category. So it's all around in the system, and the category field will then, if you go into these configuration overviews, you can see here's all the configurations I have on this screen. But all the ones who are set to that specific category will then show up instead. Right now I put it on this system. Say again.
Okay. Okay.
So
and the second question is, in SQL report there is one button which is called CRM for Outlook. How can I use it? CRM for Outlook in Crystal report.
Yeah.
In SQL report.
Yeah. I'm going here. So if I go to this one here, we have a CRM for Outlook. Okay. Yeah. So CRM for Outlook itself have the option to run, if you have both CRM for Outlook and B1UP, you have the option to go in and run these reports in CRM for Outlook. You can basically have a button inside Outlook and it can run this report for you.
Okay.
So that's CRM for Outlook. Again, there's we have a feature focus session on exactly that topic as well. But the CRM for Outlook button here is in order to put on some permissions for CRM for Outlook. So CRM for Outlook have 10 reporting groups. So if you you don't want to have that all the people who have reporting group 10 is not allowed to see this report from inside Outlook, you can go in and say, this report is possible to use for everyone but the ones who have only have reporting group 10. So it's a limitation system for CRM for Outlook by itself. It doesn't really do anything for B1UP, but it gives the option to give these reporting groups for CRM for Outlook. That's the reason why it's there.
How can I use the form state and form time suffix?
Say again?
Forms, how can I use form state and form type suffix? There is a form state, yes.
Yeah, the form state is just when you launch the report. Let me launch the report here. You can see it just shows a simple report. You can, if you want to, say that report should always run maximized. So it runs it in a maximized state, or not really used, but minimized, so it's just minimized at the button here when you launch it. So that's what form state does. For fixed count, I need a few more. Let me see if I have a good example. Not that one. Actually, a bad example. I need a few more fields here. So if I run this report, you can just see the columns in here. But if you have a lot of columns, you can go in and say this fix. I can actually show it by. It will become quite slow. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, I know the fixed count. I just want to know the form type suffix.
Oh, the form type suffix. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So the form type suffix is, if we look at this report itself, if we look at the system information, you can see the form type of this screen is BOY_41_ SQL report UF-0009. So the last part of it is the form suffix. And the reason we do this is because now this form has a unique form type. And if you have a unique form type, you can say this SQL report should have these function buttons, this SQL report should have these function buttons. So that's the reason why I have suffix.
I have one confusion.
Say again?
I have one confusion. Hello?
Hello? I don't understand.
Hello?
Yeah, hello?
Hello? In certain case, when I get filter data in SQL report, right? If I am in a sales order, and I create a SQL report, then the SQL report is open, right? Again, I can add a button on SQL report, right?
Yeah. And because
when I again filter that data on the button on SQL report, right? And again the second SQL report is open.
Yeah.
Right. But on whatever the data I get in second SQL report, and I want to use. Can I please open SQL report one? Then I can explain better. Okay, wait. In the second SQL report, I use the select data target.
Yeah.
Okay, and I want to just shift the data whatever get in second SQL report in the sales order line.
Yeah.
Okay. At that time I got the error.
Okay, then you need to send us to support what the exact error was, because SQL report.
No, what he understand, what the second SQL report understand, that he just copy data from second SQL report to
That's
the
not
first
supported.
SQL report.
That's not supported. It needs to be a parent-child relationship. So the one who opened it is the one who gets the data back. So if you opened a second SQL report, that data was trying to go back to the first SQL report.
Yeah.
It is not possible to go from the second SQL report directly back to the sales order. That's not supported.
Okay, and another question is that when I'm going to use the external launcher,
yeah,
right, I'm using like when I'm in item master, right, and I have an item like DSLR camera.
Yeah.
Okay, and I want to search on DSLR camera on the Flipkart using the Google Chrome.
Yeah. So
right, it just search the DSLR, not get the whole word like DSLR camera. And if I'm using in Internet Explorer, right?
Yeah.
It's giving me a perfect item name DSLR camera. But if I'm using the Google Chrome or the Mozilla Firefox, it just search me a DSLR.
Okay. Either the configuration is incorrect. Again, you can use you should try to go in and write Chrome and then write what you're doing. Most times a program needs to have its search in double quotes, because else it doesn't know what a space is. So it's probably the reason why it's happening.
Can I explain? There is only the issue if I make an item in item master like DSLR plus, if I write the plus sign between DSLR and the camera, then it search whole name.
Okay, look at this then. If I search in Google,
right,
you can see it puts my query up here, but it also uses pluses and such things. So if I say plus test, you can see that it turns the plus into this. And you need to do the same with SQL : in your argument. So you have a plus, so you need to say search replace using SQL, that every plus should be a percentage time to be, because that's what is called encoding in the system. It sounds like Chrome cannot do it, but the other browsers can do it. But again, if you go down in your run command and do exactly as you do in external launcher, as long as you cannot do it here, it will not work in external launcher as well. But if you turn that plus sign into the percentage to be, I will imagine it will work.
Okay, I will try it. Yeah. And the second question is, I want the SQL line search in SQL report.
Yeah, you can do that. That's just add a button to it and then run a line search. Line search. Yeah, it's coming in August.
August?
Yeah.
Line search in SQL report.
Yeah. Well, how it will work is you will go in here and there will be a new column here called searchable. And if you do any of the columns searchable, it will have a line search.
Thank you so much.
So it has been built, but the next release is first in August, and that's where it will come along.
Okay, and another question is, there is the issue in signed key. If I'm going to use the signed key in macro, then it will not work.
Say again? I didn't understand.
If I'm using signed key.
I don't know what that is.
Send key.
Send key, yeah. Don't use send key in macros in general. Send key.
Because there is some condition in a general entry, right?
Yeah.
In financial module, there is a general entry, right? My client just want the button on the general entry, okay? and when he click the general entry, there is a multiple the datas over there, right? In one line I have the GL code,
Yeah.
okay, and another line there is the business partner code, right?
Yes.
In general entry, if you just tab, then you just get the GL codes, right? If you want to enter the BP master code, then you must be click control tab,
yeah,
right? And when I'm going to use the SQL report and I just use the select data target, then it gives me error. He searched the business partner code in the tab. So I need to use the send key, and whenever the system don't get that code in GL code, then it will click on control tab. So I need to use the send key.
Yeah, and that will not work. You can see here, I've had this question a lot of times, and I've tried all the things to do, including send keys, and there is no good option to do it with UI API. And that's the reason, if you go to SAP idea place, you can see I've made actually an idea here. Please, everyone who wants this, go vote, because another one is also to override the item description on a sales order, for example. You also do that with Control Tab. SDK simply cannot do it. So that's the reason why, in this case right now, 20 people have actually voted for this. The more people who vote, the sooner we can get it, because it needs to be a new thing in SDK before we can support it. I've tried every single scenario, trying to do all the things behind the scenes. There's no good way of doing it with SDK at the moment. That's the reason why we cannot support it. But if you vote this, hopefully at some point people will, SAP will listen and give us the option.
Okay. The last question from my side.
Yes.
There is the issue in a crystal report, right? I just create the button on the sales order form.
Yeah, I know you have that in support right now.
Yeah.
We need to keep it support. Right now, nobody else in the world have it. So I would like you to try to do it on another machine, and then let's keep it in support. It's not part of this session today.
I used all such thing. I used on different approx 3 or 4 machine. I used all the things, but still develop crash.
Yeah, and that's I completely understand, but it's not part of this session. Nobody else get this. People use this every day, so there must be something specific wrong, and we will take that in the support session.
You create any report in your buttons of what I see before in the session.
So you want me to run a report?
No. I don't want to create any report. I just want to know there is one button, right? There is one form on which
so let's have this button to do it.
There is a report.
Sorry, let's take Crystal here. I will choose a file.
This report.
Choose one that needs. I'll just show the first invoice.
Update. Right.
Run the report. The report is shown. Run again. Report is shown. Run again. Report is shown. So if it were a general problem, we would get a lot more support. So it needs to be in support. There must be something wrong on your system. So we cannot take it as part of this session.
Okay. I just want to see that at your side it's worked properly or not. Okay.
Of course, we have tested when you sent it to support.
Okay. Thank you. Complete from my side.
Okay, thank you. Any others who have questions?
No, I don't have any other questions.
Okay, it doesn't seem that anyone else wrote any questions in the system. So again, thank you for attending. Hope it was beneficial, and you may now disconnect at this time.